Greetings, fellow citizens of Disneyland. Brickey here. Today's adventure, we got some really good reopening news. It's episode 14 of the reopening of Disneyland. Let's break down together all of the details on last Friday's press release and really read what is happening here in Southern California in regards to theme parks reopening. Okay, so Friday afternoon, boom, the press release comes out late on a Friday, which is always an interesting time for news to break. I have some theories about that. But the headline itself, the way that it was written, was the emotional clickbait that every Disneyland fan wanted to hear. That Disneyland and other California theme parks could reopen at a 15% capacity, as we would soon be getting in the red tier as part of California's new reopening blueprint. Yes, changing the rules on the fly once again. And this could all happen as soon as April 1st, which gets turned into Disneyland is going to reopen April 1st. No, it's not. It's not happening at all. And in fact, how did that last prediction go about this Sunday, Disneyland's reopening, so that if you don't have a ticket to Touch of Disney, you can walk up and down the streets for a snack or some shopping. And to get ahead of this, because this was such a huge headline that was going out, and Disney realized immediately, oh no, people are going to read this. They're going to read what they want to hear. Let's try to guide them in the proper direction. Kenny Potrocks put out another one of his amazing poems, trying to explain things in greater detail. We are encouraged that theme parks now have a path toward reopening this spring, getting thousands of people back to work and greatly helping neighboring businesses and our entire community. With responsible Disney safety protocols already implemented around the world, we can't wait to welcome our guests back and look forward to sharing an opening date soon. Oh, the poetry of Kenny P. Rocks and how I've learned to decipher it. If you read in here, it says several times, a path toward reopening this spring. We look forward to sharing an opening date soon. It was immediately put out just to be like, we know. We know what you're feeling. We know what you're thinking. How can we kind of slow these expectations down a little bit, even just to buy them a little bit of like emotional room of when is this going to happen? So let's look at when is this going to happen. Let's take a very deep breath and calm down and dive into the fine print on what April 1st really means. Because as we all know, the devil does exist in the details. And when you really comb through an article, not just looking at the headline, that's when you start to find the information that lets you go, okay, April 1st, good things are getting ready to happen, but not exactly what we think is going to happen. April 1st is the beginning of the process to getting back into theme parks, not when the gates magically unlock and we all get to get in. So April 1st, it is believed that Orange County will now be in the red tier, which would mean that 15% of the capacity could get into the park. If you remember back in October, when everybody every week thought that they had a little bit of intel, there's floor mats. There's floor mats by the gate. We're going to be back. They just threw out impossible guidelines to meet, to just slow it all down, to buy the state time, because they were very nervous about how Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and cold weather was going to affect COVID. They just threw out impossible guidelines to meet. I mean impossible. And as I said back then, they were impossible for a reason, because they just wanted theme parks to go away. Now wasn't the time. They were feeling so much pressure, they just pushed it off and made it go away. But now all of a sudden, theme parks can reopen in the red tier. So the big news was now all of a sudden, theme parks can reopen in the red tier, which is drastically different than what we were told back in the fall. But it does seem that we've weathered the storm, and now they are finally able to give realistic reopening guidelines. So the red tier is now the new level we could reopen at 15% capacity. But if we can make our way to orange, we get up to 25% capacity. And the sweet spot of where we really want to get is the yellow. The yellow used to be where we could just begin to open, but now at yellow, we could be back with 35% of guests inside the gates. This is a really important number that we're going to work our way toward. But first, we have so much more fine print to dig our way through, because you have to pay attention to the details. The April 1st reopening, beginning of reopening, I should say, comes with these restrictions. So let's just look at what an April 1st opening would actually look like in that first month, no indoor dining. This isn't totally a deal breaker. It would affect profitability, but we've already seen Disney parks adjust to being able to do lots of outdoor dining, and the experience is great. I learned that it's called al fresco dining, and one would go to say that if we have a smaller attendance in Disneyland, that would open up more space. More space would mean we'd have more room to convert outdoor dining. This isn't a deal breaker, but limits on indoor rides is. Nobody really knows exactly what this means yet, but just hearing that a lot of the significant e-ticket attractions, the premier attractions that make Disneyland different than all the other theme parks, couldn't reopen, that's a real problem. Imagine going there and realizing there's no Indiana Jones, there's no It's a Small World, there's no Rise of the Resistance, Pirates of the Caribbean. Some of the biggest signature attractions require being indoors for a very long period of time. Park reservations or tickets required. This one, not a deal breaker. This is going to be the future of every time you go to Disney. I feel like there could be a couple of things that will change, but making an appointment to go there, that's just here to stay. Only visitors from the state of California. Now, that one breaks a lot of hearts, but it doesn't necessarily break the bank, because there are so many California residents dying to get back in that this one wouldn't really affect the money, but it is incredibly unfair to all of the citizens of Disneyland from near and far that just want to get back in there. This one, I feel for you. I feel for you if you're not a local. And limited party size. You can't limit this party. You can't limit the party of Disneyland. I don't even know. 10 people? If you go with more than 10 people, you're going to go so slow, you're not even going to be able to rip the park even at 15% capacity. So don't try to limit my party size, California. When I'm in Disneyland, I'm there with everyone. We're all partying together. So we look at all of those guidelines, and they don't seem that bad, but this is what you don't want to hear. This is the truth of the April 1st guidelines that we really have to come over and say, this is good news. We're on our way to something great, but we're not there yet. So the main thing that you don't want to hear after reading the headline, Disneyland can reopen April 1st, is, friends, we're still a stretch away from realistically reopening Disneyland, Disney's California Adventure, in an operational way that we're accustomed to. I mean, we're a stretch away. Let's get there. We're so far away because even the parks right now do not know what any of this information means. This came out late on Friday. I have a suspicion that they maybe knew a couple of days before, but we'll get to that later. But even the parks right now don't know what the states are requiring for them. You know, they know the broad strokes, but they don't know the specifics. They don't know exactly what the state wants from them to reopen Pirates of the Caribbean, for example. So each individual park, because Knott's Berry Farms is far different than Disneyland, which is far different than Universal Hollywood Studios. Each park needs to meet with the states and get specific facts, numbers that match the requirements for specific attractions in their parks. I mean, it's just not one size fits all. These are all amazing establishments with very different protocols, very different attractions, very different guest flows. But let's just go ahead and entertain. Let's just say that Disneyland was like, we've got to reopen. The best way to sort of dispute something is to play along with it and say, okay, what does this really look like? And once you imagine it, does this scenario make any sense to you at all? So let's imagine a April 1st to 15th reopen of Disneyland. What would that look like? And what are some of the obstacles that would create? So if Disneyland were to reopen in that time period with only mostly outdoor attractions, what does that cost? Because that is far from a normal Disneyland experience. What do you charge people when you can't give them Pirates, Rise, Indy, Space Mountain? What does that look like? We're now drifting into another Touch of Disney type event. It's a whole other event where they'd have to brand it, figure out a specific price point, do a release of tickets. When you think about Touch of Disney, it solved a problem that they had. When Touch of Disney was put together, they thought they had months before the park was going to reopen. So it gave fans a way to get back into the park, to experience something new, gave Disney a way to bring back 1,000 cast members and make a little bit of money. But if we're looking at a narrow bridge of time, would you go through all of that extra hassle to do a half-open Disneyland with less than 50% of the e-ticket attractions available? Like, This would be a very specific thing to brand, and you've already set your price point of $75 is what it costs to go into DCA for food only. But park tickets start at around $120, a little over $100. So you're going to shoot for $85, $90. What do you call it? It would just be too much effort to worry about today when they should have all of their attention focused on a bigger, brighter, better tomorrow. So if you just stop and think about what this half opening would feel like, the headache associated with it, and the amount of money for a few weeks of entertainment, I just don't think that it makes any sense whatsoever financially. And then there's also that side caveat that it's impossible because of what we're going to get into next. One being that 15% of guests just isn't profitable. It just doesn't work for them mathematically. The amount of staff that they have to bring back to run and cycle attractions is a large number of people. It was all based on a much larger number of attendees. Some might say, well, yeah, if you were planning on 60% of the people to show up on Tuesday and only 15% show up, yeah, it's not profitable. No. The minimum for making the park profitable is not 15% of occupancy. They need more guests in there to hit their minimum price point. And look, they want to get everybody back to work. They want to get things going, but they also want and need to make money. It is my mind that not only does the half-baked temporary reopening of Disneyland make no sense, it's also not profitable. So that's 2 strikes against a very early reopening. And I'll be honest with you, other theme parks are going to open before Disneyland. We saw Knott's Berry go to the food festival way before Disney did. We will see other parks react to this news and get open much faster. But they also have different margins. They have a different amount of employees, operations. I mean, Disneyland essentially is a very small city that exists inside of Anaheim. It's going to move slower. You are going to see other parks reopen before Disneyland, and that just shows the scale of the operations that they're trying to bring back online. Why we also won't see the park reopen, I think probably any time in April, is training. Disney has a huge staff, the #1 employer in Orange County. Sure, food and beverage and guest relations folks, you can bring them back at a pretty rapid pace. We've seen that happen across the Esplanade with Disney's California Adventure. Once they got BVS open, if we look at the bridge for reopening more of the park for Touch of Disney, not a huge amount of time to bring back another 1,000 union food and beverage employees. But the state of California requires that every attraction operator get recertified annually. Well, friends, this weekend is the 1-year anniversary of the park being closed, which means that every single ride operator haven't operated their ride in a year. That means that all of them have to get retrained, recertified on how to operate their attractions. And aside from that, they haven't done this job for a year. So they're a little rusty in that regards. But then aside from that, they've never operated these attractions the way they're going to have to operate them now with COVID protocols. Essentially, every Disneyland cast member has not done the job that they're getting ready to do. We are looking at the #1 employer of Orange County doing a massive retraining, a new way of doing nearly every single job. And that's not something that happens fast. Or is that something that happens cheaply? Bringing everybody back in, having them in their retraining, that's going to be a really expensive couple of weeks where they're not yielding any new revenue. And how do you get something back online after it's been dormant for so long? They're going to have to practice. They're going to have to do CM previews, to have cast members in there to just figure out how it flows again. It's one thing to get a vehicle going around its attraction over and over again. It's another thing when you have to deal with the influence of real people, real obstacles, real human error. People just don't pay attention. They're not always where they're supposed to be. It is going to take a while to get everybody back up to speed, to learn the new version of their job, and to just cycle through and get a new flow of things. While Disney World, when it reopened, it had cast member previews before it opened up to us, the Gen Pop. So let's look at the best case scenario on getting the park reopened. Obviously, it's just not going to happen, in my opinion or my estimation, with no indoor rides, no dining, 15% of attendance allowed there, and an untrained workforce. To me, all of those things just say, wait. You have a little bit of time to get there. So the best case scenario is this. While Disneyland starts to contact all their employees, I mean, they have to recontact everybody and see who's still available, essentially rehire their workforce. While that time is taking place, while Disneyland is taking time to train all of these individuals, while they're taking time to practice and get things right, let's hope that us, citizens of California, are doing our part to make sure that the numbers are going down. So as we have Disney slowly working on reopening, we have California slowly working on reopening more and more of the state, getting those numbers lower and lower and going to better and better tiers. So if the two properly align, they're getting ready as the state is allowing more, there is a synchronicity to where maybe when Disney is ready to reopen, the state is ready to get them to the yellow tier, which makes me think that at some point in the middle of May or early June, these two interests shall cross paths, allowing Disneyland to get 35% of their audience in there, allowing them to operate all of their attractions so that Disneyland can get back to offering a full Disneyland resort experience and earning a full day's ticket price. And there was an interesting theory that I saw fans putting out, like, oh, kind of suspicious that this went out right after Touch of Disney. I have a sneaky suspicion, nothing to base this off of versus my own life experience and how the business world works. I have a feeling that California knew this was getting ready to happen. I have a feeling that they probably gave some of the park officials a heads up. And I have a feeling there's probably a gentleman's agreement that this would get announced after all the parks could sell out their food festivals. Because some people were acting like this news coming out the day after everything had sold out, that it was somehow sabotaging the events. And I say this, I think that if the reopening announcement would have happened Wednesday or Thursday, not only would have taken all of the oxygen out of the room and everybody talking about the possible April 1st reopening, but remember what happened with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where it was going to be so slammed and so busy, but many people decided to wait until the whole thing fully opened up. This announcement comes out Monday or Tuesday of last week. Some of these food events would have probably sold a little bit slower because people said, oh, I just read that it's reopening April 1st. Why would I go now to a half open park for $75 when I can just wait another few weeks and get back in and get it all? I have a feeling that this was a gentleman's agreement to let everything sell out, then to announce this late on a Friday, just kind of slip it under the rug. And I'm not going to lie, as somebody who bought 5 Touch of Disney tickets so that I could be there each and every Thursday live streaming and covering it. And by the way, good time to say, follow the channel, ring the bell so you can see one of my live streams from Touch of Disney. Had I known that this was so close, I might have pulled back my ticket order. I still would have gone, but I might have said, I don't know if I'm going to need to be there 5 weeks in a row, because already, unfortunately for Touch of Disney, it does feel a little less special knowing that we're probably 2 months or so away from being able to get back to the real thing. And let me assure you of this, if you are a Touch of Disney ticket holder and you are someone who bought a ticket in April, you are not going to get rides. They are not on April 1st start to reopen some of the attractions. This event was priced according to free parking, $25 food voucher, and being able to get into a DCA that is serving food only. To bring the attractions back, not only is it all the training that we talked about earlier, those cast members aren't prepared to just magically run Pixar Pier, but it also brings back a huge workforce whose price has not been worked into the price of the event ticket. And speaking of how Touch of Disney relates to the reopening of the parks, Touch of Disney is about a week away. I kind of feel like they might wait for the entire 5 weeks to wrap up, to then in the middle of April say, hey, we're going to be ready for the middle of May or an early June opening. I don't think that we will get an opening announcement before Touch of Disney starts, just because that opening announcement is going to take all of the oxygen out of the room. And even though this event is sold out and they're probably not looking to sell more tickets, they do want to let it shine. They do want to get the marketing and publicity out of this to just keep in touch with their customers. I don't think that they'll double stack the deck against the favor of Touch of Disney. It could be wrong about that, but if I was in the marketing department, I'd say as long as we give people a 30 days heads up to get back into the park, which was about what they did on the false reopening that we got last summer, I think we'll be fine. And I really feel like middle of May would be the soonest we could get in there, but the beginning of June feels very realistic for them to do a nice, soft, fully thought out, fully materialized reopening of the park. So yes, everything now is moving really, really fast, way faster than what we imagined, which means it's a perfect time for each of us to try to slow down, take off our Mickey ears, put on our thinking caps, look at everything that we read from a business perspective and not an emotional fan base perspective, so we can set all of our expectations properly and be happy that a reopening hits on the way. And it may not be April 1st like some of us got our hopes up, but here's the good news, friends. Our next visit is probably so much closer than our last visit. And that's the good news here, regardless of what that opening date may be. Friends, thank you so much for watching today's video. Comment below. Let me know, when do you think the park is going to reopen? Do you think I got this right, or is there something that you think that I clearly got wrong? Would love to hear your opinion below. I read all the comments. It always helps me reshape the content to better suit you, the audience that's watching these videos. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you don't mind, follow along with the channel and ring that bell, because every time I go to the Disneyland Resort, I always do a live stream. And as I said earlier in the video, I will be streaming every Thursday from Touch of Disney, and I'm going to rotate out those times so I can always try to find a time slot that may be convenient for your lifestyle or your location, wherever you may be at on planet Earth. Because as I've come to do these videos, I've realized that citizens of Disneyland go way beyond Southern California, and I'm happy to bring you all in. So friends, until the next time I see you in the reopening of Disneyland, I'll see you back here on the channel with more Disneyland news. I know you have a lot of options on YouTube to get your Disneyland news from. I appreciate that you choose to get your news from me here